weren't here last session, obviously we haven't videotaped everyone, but you'll be a little lost. I'll try to review briefly. But we talked about, remember, the posterior change and what that means in terms of the Olympic lifts, and that's what we're going to cover today. We're going to get into some of the Olympic lifts. Keeping in mind, our objective is, as trainers and PTs, isn't really to teach Olympic lifting. Our objective is to teach how to control our lever arms at great power, and figuring out where our clients and patients fit in that realm. For some people, it's simply teaching them how to hinge and pick up the floor with strength and stability. For athletes, it's to create power, to make them move faster and stronger, so there's overlap there. But even athletes, even at the highest level, I rarely ever will take a high-level basketball player, like, remember when David Robinson was here. If I had him try to do an Olympic lift, it was awful. So there's no reason to teach an Olympic lift. If we want to make it more powerful, we modify the lifts. For David, a kettlebell swing was appropriate to create power and hip extension for us to improve his vertical or his ability to explode left to right. But he just didn't have the neuromuscular control or the mobility to do an Olympic lift, a clean, which we'll cover today, or a snatch. Some patients and athletes will never ever have that mobility. They'll have a lack of the stability or the neuromuscular coordination. So we're not teaching Olympic lifts to everyone. What we're trying to do is teach good patterns that can translate into a good posterior chain movement of hip hinging, and then all the variations of it, and figure out with a good card catalog of exercises where they fit in and what we throw at them to improve hip extension power and core stability. And that's it. And with some people we modify in group classes the kettlebell swing. Others we can modify into teaching them a clean with a dumbbell or a kettlebell. We can teach single arm variations versus doubles. So that's what we're going to cover today, is kind of the card catalog sequence of the Olympic movements and how we break them down and see what's appropriate. Reviewing again, why do we like these motions? These are what we call monster exercises. I heard the term where they're just full body, they're neuromuscularly dense. Metabolically, they drive the heart rate up because so many muscles are involved. They're taxing down the neuromuscular system as opposed to isolated exercises. So we want to use these exercises in our programs with our athletes and patients because they have many benefits. They're monster, they're dense, all the reasons we want to throw them into the program. What are the prerequisites? You guys should remember this. If you don't have good hip or shoulder girdle mobility, there's no way you can teach these exercises. So they have to have the hip mobility, and they have to have the shoulder mobility. And the power is created from where? The engines are the hips and the shoulder girdle. The core is simply the stability that links it together. And core stability, the ability to keep the core quiet while we're linking things together. If they lack that stability in any plane of motion, and we've talked about this, whether it's a rotational deficit, which we test for things like this, we see twisting, back extension. Here, if we see twist, these are things that are prerequisites. They have to be able to do well before we introduce these motions. The side plank. So this is things we did in the last session. We went through a warm-up, and the warm-up is the perfect time, and that's probably a different lecture, but we've all heard about the FMS, the functional movement screen. We hear about all these screenings. When is the perfect time to screen your athletes on a daily basis? The warm-up. That's when we're looking, do they have the hip mobility to get in these positions? Do they have the ability to squat and achieve that alignment, or do they default into these positions? When they're warming up is when we can start to assess what does their shoulder mobility look like to get a dumbbell over their head. Do we see defaulted patterns, rotational patterns that say, well, if I see this in the warm-up, well, what's going to happen when I take a dumbbell at high speed over their head? They'll default into that pattern. Now, they'll still do it, right? And we talked about this in one of the first lectures. The body will always find a way to move, but it comes at a cost. It might not happen that's probably one of the reasons we see so many injuries with CrossFit is people will still do the movement. They'll get the weight over the head, and they'll burn calories, and they'll get lean doing it. Give it 6 months, give it a year, at some point, the system is going to break down and keep driving that shoulder over the head with internal rotation because they lack either stability in the shoulder girdle, or they default into a hyperextended spine, or lack mobility to get into full external rotation. Something is going to give, especially if you do it repetitively, load after load. We should be assessing these things during the warm-up. Okay? So on that note, let's run through, I'm not going to run through it all. So what are some of the key things we did in the last warm-up? We brought the rollers out, and we said, what's one of the first things we have to see for people to lift nicely down here in the nice squat position? T-spine mobility, right? So we took the roller out, we put it in the back, and we worked on mobilizing the T-spine. You guys ringing a bell there? Yeah. And then we went, so I'm not going to do that one, but let's pick it up. Let's say we mobilize the T-spines already. We have to mobilize the hips, because if we don't mobilize the hips, we can't get full mobility to get into these positions where we have to lift off the ground. So if we lack mobility here, we're more likely to round from the low back. So let's do some hip mobility real quick, and I'm just going to take us through a quick warm-up, spread out. We'll do a little hip mobility, a little shoulder mobility, a little shoulder stability, a little hip stability, a little core stability. I'm just going to throw some things at you randomly. Each person grab a red or green tube so you have it for yourself or a partner. Share it with a partner. If you want to do partners, if we're short on numbers, let's partner up. Let's throw some mats around the room. Everyone grab a mat, share a mat, spread it out. Okay, let's start off with some hip mobility. One of the key hip mobility ones I love is start off in the push-up position if you want. So we can do what right here? Kicking the core stability, scapular stability, push those hands down, excellent rotate. Rotate those forearms forward, squeeze the glutes. If you want, bring the heels together, squeeze the glutes. You can rock it a little bit. Let's just kick the core in. Now what's nice from here, you change that core stability right into some hip stability. Take the left leg, throw it way out. Okay, medial lateral motion, thrust that hip out there. Make sure your foot does not default into a 4-foot abduction position. Foot should be forward. Feel that outer hip capsule stretch. Feel your anterior capsule of your back leg stretching. If you don't feel the rear leg's anterior capsule stretching, squeeze your glute and drive it to the floor. Remember, we need the anterior capsule stretched on the catch parts of the lift. Posterior capsule on the getting down. Drive it way over there till you really feel that hip stretching. Left, right. Okay? Ankle mobility, drive forward, backwards. Push that knee forward as you stretch the posterior capsule of the hip. Really feel that hip stretching. Okay? T-spine mobility with posterior capsule stretch, with anterior capsule of the rear stretch. Throw it up. Okay, now drive your hip to the left at the same time. If you're on your right, so get the left leg forward, it's driving the left. Reach and hold. Let's reverse it down. Take the elbow, throw it to the floor. Drive that left hip way out wide. Some of you might feel it more in the groin area, depending on where you're most lax. Switch it. Okay, let's reverse it. Back to core stability. Rock it out. If you want to add some dimensions of loosening your hip at the same time, shake it left and right. There's another nice little stretch. If you want to add this variation, kick it. Snap the outer. And just mobilize your hip. So you really get that IT band.
What the hell did he just do?
Okay, slide it out. Watch right here. Take this up, kick it around. Use momentum. Now smash into that outer hip.
Will you be the best breakdancer ever?
Yeah, you've never seen me break dance. Okay, drop into it. Feel that capsules. And you get more of the length of the IT band. Obviously, a modification of this is you can go right into the pigeon. And you can smash into that posterior capsule this way, right? Just giving you guys some ideas to play with. Thinking about, so you just really smash into that capsule. Okay, let's take that right leg now, take it out. Medial lateral. Use momentum to stretch out that outer hip. Smash it left and right. Bam, bam. Get that stretch. Drop that back hip to the floor. Get the anterior capsule of your rear leg stretched. Now let's add the T-spine element in and the shoulder girdle. Really push your leg if you don't feel it through. Good. Elbow down, drive that hip out. And break. Okay, take that rear foot, slide into the squat position. Drive the hips, try to get somewhere around shoulder width apart, because that's right. Now, this is where you can start assessing movement. You can start looking at people, see what you see. See what you see. Can they get into this pocket? If they can't get into the pocket, you know they're going to have a problem getting into this position. So we've got to get them into this pocket where they can be upright and work on these positions here. And feel that posterior capsule stretch, and we can feel it here. Then we can take it up into the higher positions. Okay? Look at your feet position as you default out to here. Can you keep those feet forward? Look at the T-spine. Can you get into full extension? Practice your hip hinge now. Drop it down. Patterning movement while we're stretching. Drop it down. And all variations. Coming up, add some core stability in. Here's the McGill, the bowler. Just choreographing the movement to connect together. There's that bowler. Bam. Can they hold that?
That was the cape.
Yeah. The bowler. Switch sides. The bowler. Into hip extension. And the bowler. You guys are doing pretty good with this. Good. Okay. Everyone grab a band. Let's see this. So, I love using bands because they start to keep a compressive load for the body. So before any type of power lift, Olympic lift, these are great. Elbows in tight. Just get used to right here. If you just hold that right there, good posture, then you can add some left steps, you can add some right steps. You can go 2 or 3 steps to the left, 2 or 3 steps to the right. Try not to waddle. Try to stay erect and tight. Pull your elbows in tighter. In, so you're trying to go into external rotation. That's why, think of yoga, for you who follow yoga. Think of this stretch here. What are you trying to do here? You're trying to drive that elbow in with the extend as you go work up and down here. We don't want to see this. You can see I can't get around, but the focus is on the left arm. Posterior capsule stretch of the shoulder. External rotation. We're going to get it in that position. You're going to need that mobility when you start to go overhead with your lifts up here. Start to think mobility and stability with mobility with the bands. Then you're creating nice alignment postures to go over your head. Just try that position right here. Go over your head without defaulting here. Feel the difference versus if you just turn everything off. Try to stay in external rotation as you go over the head. A lot of yoga elements you're going to put into these Olympic lifts. Let us, how about some dynamic stuff with the legs? Swing them out. Focus on keeping the core tight. Okay, back to the band. This is a whole lecture in itself. I call this lower body static, upper body dynamic, upper body. So you can just play with different concepts here. This is locking, lower body dynamic, upper body static. A lower body static, upper body dynamic. So play with a couple of those patterns where the lower body becomes dynamic, where you're loading the body with good alignment. You can step through and kick, and then static lower body, upper body dynamic. Great ways to rev the body up. And this is going to feed nicely into the Olympic lifts.
Bill, what do you mean when you said step through and kick? Come up?
Yeah, or kick, or just bend the knee through. Okay. See if you can put it through the band. And then again, right here, now get some hip flexor activation. It's hard to hold that. I mean, the bands are great for just adding that load through. These are great little ways the bands can be used to really. But you can see, even in that little 5-10 minute we just did, you feel dramatically different than you did just a few minutes ago when you were sitting on the ball. So It's very effective just to throw these quick little jolts of movement in there. And lastly, how about a single leg remaining down? See how everyone's doing here. Now we have variations here. Kick back. So now we're stretching the hamstring, but we're stretching it under tensile load, which is a hell of a lot different than just doing a hamstring static stretch. And if you want to add the variation of a reach, go for it. Remember about head position? Let's not default into these positions. Head stays the same distance away from the sternum. So as we start to get used to keeping our head still. This is also a good exercise to assess rotational instability at this point. Can we go down without the back twisting and torquing? One of the lectures we'll cover, if you do see someone and they constantly go down and they're twisting and torquing, is how do you break that movement down? What are you looking for? You might have to take them down to a bridge position, a quadruped opposite arm position. Okay, let's partner up here and really kick the hamstrings. And let me demonstrate this. Going kneeling for me. Just get nice and tall. So partner up. All the way up and tall in the knee. Let's get hands across your chest. Now, all you do is stabilize. This is one of the best hamstring eccentric work. Start to fall forward. Brace the abs. Go down where you're comfortable. That's it for the abs. Okay. If you cramp in leg, try and jerk. Just hard. Just hard. Come back up from there. Take it slow. Okay. This is one of the best hamstring hip extension exercises you'll do. Look at Zerk's not defaulting in the spine. A lot of you will default in the spine. You'll see either, so real easy to test. Does your partner default in the hyperextension or flexion? Now, when you push the hand right here in this push-up position, all the way down to your push-up position, catch yourself.
Bill,
Push yourself up. Nice variation.
Bill, what are you calling this? Glute hammer?
You can call it the glute hammer, yeah. I don't call it anything.
You will see this in HIT very soon.
Yeah. He says your partner, he says your hamstring girl. So what you want to do is have assistance. If you are cramping, well, if you need assistance, you actually can use 3 people. So if you cramp, it means your hamstrings are okay, watch this, guys. Here's how you can progress this exercise. Here's the progression. Push yourself up. Slowly eccentric. So you actually see sister going down here. Yeah, see this is a nice progression. Stretch her out. Yeah, you can go around your waist and start keep to go down slowly and not in the spine position. So you might just start with pulsations. This is a great screening exercise. Especially young females, you find it.
I'll try it.
That's good, sir.
Good, sir.
Now, if you want more assistance, just push your arms out and you'll. Nice. Yeah, try not to let that back default into that position. You got to lock it. Squeeze your glutes, get the things out. Okay, so you guys can play with that, but know what you're looking for when you do these things. I mean, they're fun and they look cool, but remember, the point is that you can eccentrically lower without defaulting into quarter spine positions. Okay, and then you can get assistance with the band. Okay, that's good. So you got the idea, you got some crab walk with the bands. As I said, you can play upper body dynamic, lower body static. You can play lower body dynamic, upper body static, and you can play combination patterns, right? To really rev the body up before you get into some of these lifts. Let's go into the other room. Let's throw everything back in the closet. Over here.
right here?
No. Pull it out.
Oh, you are?
That's okay, I can take it later.
Use this area here.
Congratulations on your what? The photos there we go. Oh no, really?
Got the good one.
I guess it's
Oh, nice. Here's one little exercise you guys can practice. This is just the deadlift. Remember we talked about this? You can make these isometric. And there's a lot to be said with breaking down motion at different angles. So this is great for back re-education. Let's say you have someone, they always get hurt when they bend over, their back goes out. They can't maintain the posture. So put them in the posture you want. Use isometrics, just like we would use for someone who's got more shoulder stability and keeps dislocating. You put them in the posture you want. Isometrically exert force in that position. So if you know they have a position where they're weak or they default into poor movements, put them in the position you want. Isometrically exert a force there. So right here, I can exert a force. So I'm pushing up against that bar that's not moving. The other thing you can do is load way up, much harder than they would lift. So you steer, put the 45s on here, put them 500 pounds. That's all they're going to lift it. But they're not going to lift it. You're just setting them up, remember, we're patterning the motion and going into an isometric pattern. So for some people that would be intimidating. You put them here, isometric. So now I got a force that you're starting to teach them how to engage the core in a position where they're not lifting, but where they maintain alignment. And if you see them default into these positions, back to here. How do you guys try that? Just to see what that feels like. Just run it. Start at corners. Obviously, Devin, you're not going to do that. So that's going to be like one arm. You're going to try. But just feel the pattern. Yeah, see the contraction of the force? Start to teach people how to get into position. Now, how can we compress, use different angles? Why don't you just stick it up there? Bring the bar here for me. So let's say we want higher up. Different angles. Put it up there for me. So right there, instant change in angle. Now show me. So now we're closer to the knee. Again, you teach them isometrically how to fire the yeah. And there's a nice contraction. For some people, there's no way they're going to lift that. But isometrically, you can teach them to be strong in this position. Start to retrain the body. There's no motion, so you can really give them the feedback they need. Then we go up higher, right? Stick it up. So let's go above the knee because you would be the one lifting up. This is a great way to start to teach positionals. That's a good one. So now we're above the knee, right around the knee. So you can go all the way through the ground up. Eventually, maybe if it's higher up, lift an inch. But you can start to teach. So isometrics are fantastic for teaching deadlift, for getting people strong, just defaulting to a round position. Yeah. So if you see, some people you'll put them in isometrically and they pull, they'll start flat, start straight. Just isometrically pull and default to the point. Yeah. So you have to teach them how not to default to that position where they put the force to the bar. Go down, reset, pull. Now, same force, track. Practice your isometric skills. You can build some really good strength when you can lift it together. So, we went over traditional deadlifts last time. We talked about it. Let's start grabbing kettlebells, dumbbells. It doesn't have to be heavy. Everyone grab some form of resistance. If you want it to be heavy, make it heavy. If you want your workout. Get it open here. Start to spread it out. Some of you can use bars. Yeah, grab light first. Go ahead and grab something. Okay. So if you just have a dumbbell and you're doing it asymmetrically, now what are the advantages to doing things asymmetrically?
Stabilize rotation.
They're actually easier to teach, I think. Now, some people, as I said, you never ever, they just don't want to be in this position. This is where isometrics are helpful. But as soon as you put them here, they don't have the mobility. I remember like David, I would never get him in this position because he was awful. And in the one summer, I wasn't going to have enough time to get him mobile enough to get down to the ground. Versus a dumbbell, you don't have to go as long. You can just work on your hip hinge. Right? Remember, it's not about teaching Olympic movements. It's about teaching to control the lever arms and getting good hip hinging posterior chain patterns. Forget clean and jerk. Just think about what they encompass. So remember, for internal rotation, dumbbell, the shoulders will be directly over the hand. And if you want to use a Romanian deadlift pattern, remember that's 20 degrees knee bend. You just practice that without any weight. 20 degrees hip hinging, remember patterning, and then with the weight. And the deadlift is just this. Single arm deadlift. You want to practice it with the bar. Remember, it's hands on the outside. 20 degrees. That's the Romanian deadlift, which is great to teach the hip hinge pattern. Traditional deadlift, you'd have to start to do what? Put a little bit more knee bend in. Then you lift as a unit. You want to use two arms, fine. So try a couple Romanian ones, the 20-degree knee bend. I've been pushing this left hand back. And try a couple of the traditional one where you hinge and drop the butt down, and bounce it down there, it'll take up the slack in your hip, and then pop up from there. Feel the difference, yeah, between a Romanian deadlift and a traditional deadlift. Now the sumo deadlift, just so terminology guys, if you guys ever see this on YouTube, this is where you see me turn way out. I don't like this one at all because I hate teaching this pattern because I don't want people to get in the habit of doing this with their feet because we never do this in daily life. You should do this. And you see him do this. And you're trying to really turn way out like a sumo. There's a lot more load on the back this way. It's rounded a little bit more and they come up. And you see this dead leg grip. More of a seam. To me, this is not what I want to pattern. Even if it means I might lift more weight, the pattern I want to see for sports and daily life is the Romanian deadlift. This one. But just so you understand, when they say sumo deadlift, that's what it looks like. This is it. But you can see it tends to be more rounding in the back. And this is when you see the guys lifting 500–600 pounds. It's like, bam, right out of here. You can do it, you get strong doing it, but you set up, I think, some bad patterns. Okay, so the asymmetrical ones are also good for what? If you have them balanced, left to right side. Now before we go into today of the cleans, which are the power exercises, which means lower loads, higher speeds, you have to see if they can achieve the motions to do that. So we have to break down the clean, and then I'm going to have Emil demonstrate some cleans from the ground. But let's do it single. So, if you can't do a goblet squat, that tells you right away when someone cleans and they go to catch it in this position, they're going to default into a poor position. So check, see if they can do a goblet squat, which would be, if you want to do a double arm one here, can they achieve this position with good mobility without defaulting into rounded back, arch backs? Try a single arm one. See if they can do that. Because if they can't, you know right away, you can't teach it clean into this position. Same with an overhead. When they go overhead and drive overhead, we're going to default into a position. They can even try overhead with the catch, up, the press motion, up. Try a few of those, because if you can't do that, there's no way they can do a clean jerk or a clean press. So try your goblet squats. Break down the goblet squats. Hand right here. Try it double arm and try it single arm.
Feet. I saw you roll ever slightly out your feet. Does that matter or should they be
Under your hips.
toes?
Ideally under your hips.
Yeah.
Ideally
Okay.
under your hips. Now you can go a little wider. You can play to try to stay. The question is, where should your feet be? Ideally, from a sports perspective, under your hips. And if you want to go a little wider, to get a little better squat, you can kind of play with it.
That's what I roll with it.
Oh, I think, well, I
Is it
think,
shoes? But they should, the weight should be forward on, like,
I mean, it should be flat footed.
Yeah,
You should
okay.
not be,
Yeah.
should not be inverse, or maybe I wasn't paying attention. But yeah, you shouldn't be, the knee should be driving out, but the feet
Yeah,
should be flat.
right, that's nice.
You gotta grip the, that helps grip. Then we'll break it down. So everyone try their goblet squat, single arm, elbow in. Elbow should be, and a good rule is the elbow should come to the inside of the knee. That's a good goal, is get the elbow inside the knee with it parallel, without dropping the elbow down. When you get down there. That's your objective. Feel the difference? If that arm stays up. So see your goblet squat, see if you can master it. Then if it looks pretty good, then you know when it's time to clean, we'll talk about the power clean and the clean, that they have the mobility and the pattern for loading. Let's try the overhead now. So take the weight. So this is a press or a jerk, depending on how we do it. So let's just try a press where you just go up like this. Good. Let's see what your motion looks like. You get your full extension without defaulting into a hyperextended back. Now this time, a little bit more to the clean and jerk. I'll demonstrate the catch part of the high point of the jerk. First one. Don't do a split jerk. Use a standard. Okay. So he's using a jump pattern. So that's where you get into, are we teaching Olympic lifts or just good patterns? If you're teaching Olympic lifts, you're teaching that impulse, but we don't have to get that specific. It can be just simply, see that little catch? Up. I just drive up and then I re-catch because I want to shock absorb. Because if I catch explosively with my knees locked out, what am I likely to do with my back? Hyperextend. So catch. Put your knees slightly back. Let's see that little noise. That's it. So I have shock absorb. That and then what do I do with my knees when I catch? Actually, I rotate. That helps lock my back. Then I'm slow. If you're just doing a standard press, you can just go like this, right? But if you're not in the impulse part of it, that's where you get into the power moves, that little impulse catch. Okay? Make sense? Now, if you have that, then you can try to connect the two together. So, I'm going to start off with internal rotation. Shoulder width apart or just wider. Remember, what we're first trying to do is teach the position. Can we get in this position? So part one, if it's just a clean, depending on the reference you look at, a clean you catch in a low squat position. A power clean, if you're using Spirit as a reference, you catch in a high squat position. So here would be a clean. So I put it in the balance, I'm going to drive up, then I have to accelerate and get under it quickly. So now I'm in my low position. I'm going to drive up. That's the pattern. Release. Hip hinge. So I'm using a combination, a little bit of hip hinging, a little bit of knee bending. I'm loading. I'm feeling that elasticity. I'm driving up, get under it, low. Maintain my posture. Drive up. Catch. Now again, if an Olympic lifting coach were breaking my movement down, he would kill me. But I'm not concerned about Olympic lifts. About just being patterned. Am I hinging okay? Am I catching okay? Am I maintaining alignment? Am I optimizing it to the degree of an Olympic lifter? Not even close. But I'm teaching a good pattern. I'm teaching someone how to absorb. And that's really all we need to do as trainers. Don't break it down a degree that it's an Olympic movement where it doesn't make sense. But it is way too complicated. We're not, you can spend years on Olympic lifts. So let's give that a try. Try it first with the low catch. And then try a few what's termed a power clean with the high catch. The high catch just allows you to go heavier weight because you don't have to drop as low. Yeah, but you notice some of you, because you're not used to it, what do you do with the dumbbell? We let it way out here. It's got to pull straight up. And as it stays, you drive up here. Straight up. You got to get in the right position. Drive straight up. First, you got to get under the weight. So it's hard to feel this with a light weight. Sometimes you got to go heavy because if it's light, you'll never feel what it feels like to get under the weight. A heavy weight, I can only accelerate this weight so high. And at some point, I've got to get under it. A light weight, you can do whatever you want. When you start to go heavier, you accelerate this up as fast as you can. Watch it. Accelerate, and then I get under it. See it? So I'm forced to drive my hips under the weight. With a lightweight, you're not forced to do that. So it kind of looks like a roly poly, where you just kind of like, heavyweight, you gotta fight to get under it. Drive up as fast as you can, and then you get under it as quickly. Does that make sense? So you gotta practice a little bit with different weights. Do the full routine and do the overhead. So let's see a low catch, and then go in the overhead. Feel like get away from your body, sir?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, you don't have your lungs.
Yeah. But still go straight up. Pull the bar straight up. Emil, set up for a couple clean and jerks with the bar. Just put some weight on there. So these are things that we need to practice. These take coordination, they take timing, they take rhythm. You know, you see Devin's got a little bit more natural feel to it because he puts that part of his workout program. So he maintains his lever arms nicely. Okay, so this is what it looks like with Olympic lifting perspective. This takes lots of practice.
I guess I would just reiterate, terminology-wise, a power clean is easier to learn. All that means is that you're catching it with your eyes above parallel, but not in that bottom position. And it's easier to learn than most people. It has a lot of benefits. So a power clean, set up in the bottom. I like to put my feet underneath my hips, not shoulder width, not wider, underneath my hips. Hands are outside, right? You're gonna take the slack on the board, just like Bill Fox does. Set your hips low, take the slack on the board. You stand up, you don't rush the pull, okay? It's slow off the floor. All the explosion happens once the knee, the bar passes. All right? So, slow off the floor, pass the knee, you're gonna explode and hit the bar with your hips. Catch it above parallel, stand up. The other thing to talk about is this rack position, right? Talk about thoracic stability, and that being a position of stability. It's important that you teach people to force their elbows up. As soon as those elbows drop, what happens to my thoracic spine? It turns over. If you're carrying any amount of weight, that's definitely. So again, the power clean. Don't rush the pull.
Take it into the overhead form once.
Go ahead.
Take it overhead once.
Split jerk.
Yeah, whatever you want to do.
All right.
Just watch the full sequence connected. Remember, monster dense exercise. So, so again, now, that can be intimidating watching that. And the reality is, we're never going to get to that level with most of our clients, and we're not going to get to that level most of ourselves. But my technique's nowhere near as good. But we still can teach basic patterns, like how do we get people in these low positions? You know, maintaining alignment, teaching them the isometrics. We can still teach them how to deadlift out here, how to just lift, carry heavy weight from a low position without defaulting to poor positions. So we teach the traditional deadlift or the remaining deadlift. And then for those of us who can teach the clean, keeping in mind it's easier single arm, because we can modify this with one arm versus two arms, which for a lot of people they're never going to get. I can't maintain that position with a bar well. So again, you know, it's just that pattern of teaching. See, I can't get and again, I personally don't want to spend the time doing that because I'm not ever going to do this in daily life. I'm going to do this in daily life. So I'm not going to waste hours doing this unless I want to be an Olympic lifter. But nevertheless, it's still a great mobility exercise though. If you want to work on shoulder mobility, and take this as an exercise or a warm-up and practice that without going into this work doing. And it's definitely, I modify it where I realize, okay, I'm not going to get there. So I just sit, my elbows are down, I'm sturdy, and I'm locked. And from this position, I can practice. I modify my grip because I don't like a wide grip out here for the snatch. That puts too much load on my anterior capsule. It bothers my shoulders a little bit. I modify the lift here. So everything can be modified. Teach new alignments. Don't get caught up in the advanced stuff, but it's definitely worth listening to and watching. You can appreciate where you can go with it. But the majority of people won't get there. Unless you want to, and even definitely I can tell you this, no athletes will never get there. Unless they're Olympic lifters, or they have a sport that definitely, they spend a lot of time with the Olympic lifts. The wrestlers do, some MMA guys do, but the majority of the big four, baseball players, no way. Baseball players can't even get that off the floor. Coordinating like this. Basketball players, too long lever, no way. Hockey players are beautiful, yes. football players or PBS. Depends on the sport. Okay, so that's the clean. We did the jerk. We tried it asymmetrically. And again, asymmetrically, how many times do you think with your people you're going to find a difference between the right arm and left arm going overhead, either with a mobility component or a strength component? Almost all the time, which is the argument for what? Make it easier and do it with a dumbbell or a kettlebell versus, and if you're going to do a double arm, what's more practical for classes? Vipers. Everything we did here, we can modify with a Viper. You know, and again, see, there's that grip I like with the Viper. See, my elbows are not up here. I'm stable right here. So the Viper allows you to get in a stable position here, which is something people can get instantaneously. That other lift is too hard. And they can learn to go overhead instantaneously with nice alignment of their shoulders. So Vipers are great. The grip is set up to teach the Olympic race. To stay down here, to create that alignment. Vipers are great for teaching Olympic race from a double arm perspective. Make sense? Okay, what was the other thing I wanted to cover? Swings, okay. So if we can't always get into these lifts that are more complicated, the kettlebell swing or the dumbbell swing is great. So what are some of the different ways we can swing? So the swing sometimes gets confused because we always wonder what the angle should be. Now the swing can be dominant hip, or it can be more up and down with the knees. If you choose to make it more of a squat, though, it takes more force and shoulder force to drive it up. Just feel the difference swinging from a squat position. And it doesn't matter. What matters is, are you controlling your lever arms? Are you maintaining alignment? As you swing using the squat pattern, are you sitting back so you have the vertical shin angle? Are your knees coming forward? Or you can use the hip hinge. Hip hinge is more traditional, what you see in classes. And then you have the different element here where you start off single arm, clear the shoulder, external rotation. So you can teach nice good patterns here. Let's try a few of those. Whether you decide to go hip dominant or knee dominant, try both. Try some double arms, try some single arms. Now these are power motions, right? Because it's a light load, you're using elasticity, you're exploding out of a low position. Feel the difference if you go asymmetrically, one arm at a time. Okay, and the other variation with what we're doing with your clients, this is one of Miguel's exercises. This is one of the best exercises to strengthen the spine, to teach good hip extension thrust. It's from this position here, for the legs. And again, it's like the swing with the kettlebell, but you have to overcome the inertia down here and drive up out of here. Now you're only coming to here because you're in internal rotation, so you're stopping at 90. This is a great exercise to teach the hinge pattern and to stabilize the spine. So that's a nice variation. We modify it with the brick trainer a little bit like this. So it can be done in class right here. And you can, the nice thing of that too is you don't get the resistance till you're up here. It's an elastic resistance, cable resistance. Okay, so the difference now, we talked about lifting off the floor. How about, oh, I forgot to cover the whole sequence with the kettlebell. So sometimes if you run through the whole sequence with the kettlebell, that's great. So when you put the whole sequence together, it can look like this. Okay, so if we're doing a single arm clean, set that nice position. So you can see just if I'm using the floor, I'm kind of in between the two positions here and the remaining. Okay, so if I'm going to catch, I'm using more of a power clean because I'm not dropping off down here. But I catch here, right? Then I go up. Now here's the difference when you use a kettlebell. When you go all the way down, you don't have to go to the floor every time. You can take it down here, and then I can go into a swing pattern. That's it. I can just swing combine the swing up. I can go in this swing. And I can do this with a snatch as well, where I can go all the way up. See the internal rotation down low, external rotation up. So you don't always have to reset at the floor. Does that make sense? You go from a swing into the catch, or if it's a snatch, which we haven't talked about yet, all the way up. So you can go swing, position for an overhead. Let's demonstrate a hand snatch for me. Hand snatch, you start, the difference in the hand is just the position. You start, as Neil will talk about, you start from higher up. And this again, when you're a biker, for kick classes, you don't always have to go low, you can just go hip hinge. We're going to shortstop position here. Again, I don't care if I'm touching my knees, I care about if I modify it, am I hip hinging nicely, maintaining neutral, doing the elasticity in my heels. I'm not so diligent like Neil's going to be with the traditional Olympic lifts, where he's right up the thigh, where he's going to hit, pop out there. This is the modification I'm looking for. And then do this, and then take that elasticity and pop over their hip. That's what I'm looking for. But from the Olympic lift perspective, watch the difference in detail. Do hand snatch. This is one of the key lifts to develop speed and power graphics. Show him one more. So watch, he starts from the hand position where he's above his knees. He's loading up. Just pause it for me 1 second. Look at the load here. He's fighting neutral here. Now he's going to give a pre-stretch. There's the stretch. And now he's going to explode out of there. Oh, sorry. Okay. He's losing his grip. As you can see, he's exploding out of this position with full thrust, accelerating the bar over his head. Modification we're looking for lots of reasons. Even with higher professionals, it's just, I don't care if I'm on my thighs. I care about activities. I care about elasticity. I care about maintaining my lever arms and my knees not buckling in. This is the modification I'm looking for here. Snatch. And again, you can make these fairly technically challenging with a bike, finding the right way with a bike. The grip's right there for you. Very teachable. So what is teachable? The question is, what can we learn from the Olympic lifts and make it practical to our everyday lifestyle? These are the modifications that we use. We do it fairly safely too. All the prerequisite work we talked about. Questions? Try 2 snatches. Try the snatch from the low position here. Try to go down. The difference in the snatch is you don't pause here. You go right over the head. Try 2 snatches, single arm. Try 2 hand snatches where you just single arm. See, there's my hand snatch single arm right there. See, I'm doing the elasticity. Am I hinging? I'm going to go right over the head. 1, 2, 3. Try 2 hand snatches. The challenge for most of you is to go straight up with the vector and not with the dumbbell. Get away from the body. The vector is straight up. Straight up. Not bad, not bad. Watch Emil for a couple references. These take rehearsal, even for us. But, we have to be able to demonstrate how we can teach them. Goes, yeah, correct. Yeah. Yeah, it's going to flip over. Because we're getting to, this is the position of stability. Does that make sense?
Where does the other arm go? That's always, like whenever you're doing like one-handed stuff, is it hip? Is it
Sometimes hip. I exaggerate though. I find that I'm even more stable if I take this hand, push it back like that. So I'm even more stable if I do this, but you can always default to this position. So, yeah.
I absolutely put it behind me and internally rotate.
Yeah, that will lock the shoulder.
Internally rotate,
Yeah.
Until you can palm down.
Yeah.
So the rule with hips and shoulders.
That's a good one. That's a good posture.
Flexion, external rotation, and the extension.
Okay, you can see this is a lot of material that we're throwing at you. You can take weekend seminars on this stuff, and all you do is do it over and over and over again. So you've got a blueprint. Now you just got to practice it. And that's really the objective of today's lecture, is to get you guys to grow to practice on your own. So why don't we take this material, take it home, practice it, and then pick it up on the next session and see how we do it. Sound good?
Great.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.